you what top designers like Calvin Klein are coming up with now.
Used to be that healthy, voluptuous models playfully strutted down the runway selling sexy images. But that's not in style anymore. Now models are trying to achieve the drugged-out, wasted look. It's called heroin chic, and it's causing a flurry of controversy. In the eye of the storm is Calvin Klein. It's rumored that he uses real-life junkies to sell perfume. Is the modeling industry pulling addicts off the street and glamorizing their wasted look? They're on the runways and plastered on magazine covers, emaciated models pushing a deadly look. Heroin chic is flooding pop culture. One of the summer's most hyped foreign movies, Trainspotting, took a trip through Scotland's junkie underbelly. Courtney Love put a fashionable spin on the junkie image. And when her husband, Kurt Cobain, died, it was the highest profile drug-related rock star death since the 70s. Now heroin is back from the underground. It's mainstream. And insiders say while other fads have come and gone, heroin chic is here to stay. But the question is, has the fashion industry gone too far this time? Are they glamorizing heroin and pushing more kids into drugs? Wally?
Karen, thanks a lot. I must tell you, joining us today are people who have strong opinions about this, and they do not agree. First up is Roy Campbell. He is the fashion editor for the Philadelphia Inquirer. You read his work on Sunday. Marianne Griss is here. She's a fashion stylist. Let's also say that she worked her way through law school as a model, so she's seen both sides of it. Tony Ward's a fashion photographer, one of the best known in the country for some of his erotic work, and this is his bread and butter. What is this look that everybody's talking about?
Basically, Wally, the look is sort of the look of a crack addict. They say heroin chic, but lately crack has been much more prevalent in communities than heroin, and it's a look of a crack addict. It's spaced out, very thin, hair disheveled, just the look of someone who is badly strung out on drugs.
And do the designer, in your opinion, do the designers know that?
In my opinion, the designers do realize it, but some of them didn't realize it in the beginning. I was one of the first reporters to write about this, this look because I was outraged. I mean, I have a teenage daughter, a teenage son, right. And I'm sitting at a collection, and here comes these ultra-skinny models, hair all over the place, heavily lined eyes, like the drug look of the 60s. So I went to Donna Karen's office and talked to Patty Cohen and asked her about it, and she said it wasn't their intention, that they had Donna made tube skirts that season, and in order to show them, she needed very, very skinny models. And just so happened at the same time, the makeup artists and stylists had been to Paris, where heroin chic started, and was fashioning makeup that way. So they kind of came together. It wasn't their intent, but that was exactly what happened on the runway.
Okay. Do you think that Calvin Klein, you've got a daughter, I've got two daughters. Mm-hmm. Do you think Calvin Klein gives a damn if my kid uses heroin?
Well, I think, yes, I think Calvin Klein does care if children use drugs. He has a daughter, Marcy, who works with Saturday Night Live, as you know. I think he does care very much so. But in the creative process, these designers and stylists and makeup artists and photographers get on the set and they begin to do things creatively in a vacuum, outside of the world. I talked to Grace Mirabella, the former editor of Vogue, about this very thing, this drug look, this waif look, and she said the same thing, that when you get creative, you forget what the outside world might get out of that. And I had it happen to me at the newspaper, in fact.
Marianne?
I strongly disagree. I feel that the fashion industry is a creative process, and I think that it is a definite resurgence of the street style from the 70s, and I think that the heroin trend has really been around quite a while, at least 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I really feel as though the designers are not so much concerned with creating or promoting a heroin trend, but more so having a creative process and creating a piece of art. And I think that that's really what the fashion industry is about.
Yeah, but at what point does art lead? At what point do we send out messages to really impressionable? I mean, we've all been teenagers once upon a time.
I don't think that the fashion industry can promote morality. And I think that that's the responsibility of the person looking at the fashion. And I feel as though, I think it's really twofold. I feel that the designer is, one, a creative person, and two, is trying to sell a product. And I feel as though you cannot regulate, an industry based on morality.
That's
Tony, you're shaking
Well, I think there's another factor that we have to weigh in here. A lot of these top models are working to death. They go from one show to the next, from one photographer studio to the next. And a lot of these people just look tired because they're just run down. I don't think it has anything to do with drugs.
I think that's all Hogwarts.
You don't agree?
No, because we have responsibility to the public to at least understand what we're doing. If we don't know ourselves as adults that what we do can affect people, if we don't take the responsibility, who will? I had at the Inquirer once, we did a photo shoot with swimwear. And we had a black model who was wonderfully built, and we were in the studio, and we put chains on him for dramatic effect, as it were. We shot they were fabulous photographs. I went home and forgot about them. The next morning, another black editor looked at those pictures and was outraged because this would seem to promote slavery. Or black men in chains. I agreed with them. We pulled the pictures. You have to be responsible because we may not promote heroin, but if you glamorize it, then people who are in that mindset may very well think this is a thing to do, and we have to be responsible.
I think on a personal level, people can be responsible. I'm very, very anti-drug, and I feel very strongly that people should take responsibility for what they do on a personal level. But we're talking about an industry, and I don't feel that you can regulate an industry.
Line 1, thanks for holding. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I don't see if you're expressing yourself right here. What is so creative about a 23-year-old girl looking like a heroin addict on a runway? Where's the creativity? You're not saying it right because I'm not buying it.
You know what? I've got to agree with her. It doesn't do a lot for me, but I don't think I'm the target. Does heroin chic move product? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
It does.
It's a statement.
What kind of
the
product,
statement
though?
is an
What's it moving?
anti-fashion statement.
What product is it moving? CK1 is flying out of the store. You could get all the knockoffs of CK1 you want, and the average kid on the street wants CK1. They don't want a knockoff. CKB, which is the new Calvin Klein fragrance, is flying out of the store at $35 a bottle.
Yeah, but he spends millions and millions of dollars on promoting the product.
Okay, do you agree with what Roy said before, whether or not Calvin Klein cares whether my kid uses heroin?
I think he cares, but you'll never be able to take the metaphor out of the picture. Picture says many things to different people. I don't see the new pictures as being revealing about heroin use or anything like that. I just think they look like tired, overworked models, period.
Okay, drug use. Is this look promoting drug use? Stay with us as AM Live moves on.
He's not handsome, but he won an Emmy, and women love to love him. Dennis Franz, live, coming up later.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila. If your home needs replacement windows, you sure don't need an expert to tell you. You probably already know it, but maybe you don't know exactly how to go about shopping for them. Well, Sears can help. Just call the...
I mean, to everybody who thought that they were really pushing the envelope in the 70s by smoking marijuana, this is a whole different ballgame. Sean Conaboy ought to know. Here's a guy who works with addiction and trying to help people who are addicts every day. He is a counselor of heroin addicts at the Caron Foundation in Wernersville, PA. Bottom line, young people come in. Is the age of the average heroin user getting younger and younger?
Yeah, absolutely, Wally. The age is getting younger, and I want to really applaud the segment we just saw for the Partnership for a Drug-Free America, because what they are trying to do here, similar to what Roy was saying earlier, is take the mystique out of the heroin chic look, start to address the realities behind heroin use, de-glamorize things, and start to bring things into a realistic realm.
Okay.
We see young people every day.
Who's the bad guy here, to any of you? Who's the bad guy? Is it MTV? Is it Calvin Klein? Is it Donna Karan? Is it People magazine that runs these ads?
Wally, I don't think there's necessarily a bad guy here. And when I was first approached about this, I wanted to say that I was not outraged by this, but I was expressing concern. The concern being that we are seeing black and white photos of models with the heroin chic look. We are seeing the media portraying people in a certain way. What we see every day at the Caron Foundation are these young people that are coming into treatment addicted to heroin that look exactly like this. I see every day the story behind the pictures in the image, and it is disastrous. These are people that have been robbed of everything that is important to them, destroying relationships in their life. The only intimacy they experience at the point they come to us is the intimacy that sharing a syringe brings with somebody else that's using.
Let me, if I can, bring several models out. And Roy, this is your bailiwick. Tony, this is your bailiwick. You tell me. Can we have the models, please? And we're not suggesting for 5 seconds that these are people who are drug users. But we are suggesting that these are people who are indicative of what we call the look. And the difference between these three young men and women versus what would be hot 5 years ago, Roy, is what?
Well, not even 5 years ago. The difference is that the look had gone several from grunge, which was very, you know, Seattle, thrift store look, to glamour, which was high glamour, and now, again, the direct opposite. Here you have what is called the heroin chic look or the crack addict look, the hollowed eyes, the thinness. But the clothes themselves, you should realize that the clothes that came along last season were based on the 1970s, early 1970s, late 1960s, when hippies, very skinny young kids, were wearing hip huggers and midriffs and those sorts of designs. That's what's back. And so the models had to look that way to fit those clothes. They couldn't show those clothes on the runway.
But to accuse the fashion people of saying this is glamorizing, I don't think it's doing it at all.
You don't think so?
No, absolutely not. Does it look like glamour to you?
You're the one that takes the pictures.
Well, I don't know what planet Tony lives on. But when you see these models in Vogue magazine, that's glamour. Now, I don't know what you call it.
Glamour
you
to
put
me
it
is
in
a
Vogue,
traditional sense of glamour.
when you put it in Vogue,
As soon as we say that this is glamour, I think it's ludicrous. You don't.
Well, I've seen some of your pictures, and they're ludicrous. This, when you put this,
I've seen your column. It's very ludicrous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Line 5. Thanks for holding. You like it, huh?
I'm a 19-year-old student, and I would never, experimentally or anything else, pick up a drug simply because that's what someone in a picture looks like they're doing. I like the look. I think it looks rugged, and it's just something that's eye-catching. You look normal rather than being all made up and glamorous and have a look that people look at and say, I could never look like that. You look normal in a way, and people tend to be more drawn to it because they say, hey, look, I can look like that. You know, and it's not because of the drug. It's just simply because, hey, you can really achieve that look, the way they're dressed and their facial expression. It's not like someone flew out to Malibu
That's
and
somebody's
just took
daughter, Roy.
a beautiful shot. You know what I mean?
Somebody's daughter is saying they like it.
Part of the Calvin Klein campaign was to show sort of normal kids, and that's how it began. Kids who were not models, kids who you could find in the Village in New York, or kids you could find on South Street in Philadelphia. That was the beginning of the CK Jeans campaign, and it kind of worked. But as he sought to heighten that effect, at the same time, again, now designers didn't start this look, by the way. It started in the streets of Paris. And what I mean to say is when
or the streets of Philly, for that matter.
Yeah, but Paris was when I first saw, and then Philly followed. What I mean to say by glamorize, I don't think that designers are sitting down and saying, let's glamorize heroin
Exactly,
use.
that's exactly my point.
I agree with Tony on that.
But
however, the target audience is those who may very well want to use
and
heroin.
here's a guy who sees these kids come in on stretchers almost dead. And the question is, what put them there?
Well, I am not certainly here, Wally, to say that
certainly not the pages
CK,
of Vogue.
Vogue, or Glamour magazine, or Cosmo put them there. What I'm going to say is adolescents and young people are very susceptible and vulnerable to the media, to advertising, to fashion. They are a targeted audience. They are also at an age developmentally where they're looking for an identity, they're looking for an image.
That's right.
And when they see this image that is very closely associated with a heroin, crack-addicted chic look, it is giving our young people a very mixed message. There's no question about that.
Line 2, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know, is it true that they take drug users off the street and use them as models?
Okay, that's been out there. The Calvin Klein's models really are heroin addicts.
Well, yes, there's a resurgence of heroin use in the modeling industry. It was well documented in Allure magazine a couple of months ago that several models are heroin addicts and have been modeling and on drugs at the same time. And Allure wrote an article about that, but turned around in September and ran a photo spread with models who looked like they were on heroin. So, I don't know how you do the two, but yeah, it wasn't deliberate.
Hi, thanks for holding. What do you think?
Well, the normal person is not skinny and gangly looking like that a lot of times unless you're anorexic or doing drugs.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay.
This.
Oh, no,
Let
I
me
think she's
respond to that,
got a
Wally.
very
You're
good
like
point.
promoting people to try to be this skinny when the normal person isn't that skinny.
Well, this has been a rap on modeling
unless you are.
long before this particular look came in.
Yeah.
There's always been this rap on modeling that you don't get to be a model without being anorexic or bulimic, or at least wrestling with that.
Well, certainly the modeling industry does not represent the norm. I mean, it's setting some kind of a cultural norm on beauty, but one of the things that is interesting here is the CK campaigns are not appealing to most adults. And why is that? I say that it is because adults have a well-established sense of themselves. they are much more immune to that kind of advertising than young people are. There's no question about that, psychologically or developmentally or culturally.
Well, also, the CK1 ads are not aimed at adults either. They're actually aimed at Generation X, and that's why it's a phenomenal success. Calvin Klein realized that these kids have been locked out of our society. We have our own way of judging these kids, and suddenly someone said, hey, you're worthwhile. We believe in you.
Okay, and what's so wrong with that? I mean, we grew up in the 60s and 70s, and Cheryl Tiegs was the look, the all-American California beach girl, and if you didn't look like that, if you were a little bit heavy, or if you didn't have that golden smile, you were an outsider. Calvin Klein comes along and says, a lot of these kids out there, by their own definition, are losers, so what's wrong with that?
Well, like I said in the beginning, it was fine. I just think that as it went along, in heightening that look, now I'm a fashion editor, so most people in fashion are defending this, so what I'm saying to you is that I came up first as a reporter on the crime scene covering AIDS people with drugs, and I've seen the reality of this. So now that I'm a fashion editor, I hold that same responsibility. Yes, I'm creative, but I also have to hold the responsibility of what I put in the pages of the newspaper.
Hi, you wanted to say what?
I wanted to say that I am also a former fashion model, and we used to fashion things for beauty, for females looking lovely. I have a son who was extremely tall and handsome, who was asked to be on the cover of many magazines. He's a heroin addict now. He's lying on a street in New York somewhere. I'd like to know how much glamour they see in this type of thing.
Can I ask you to do me a tremendous favor? Would you hold for just 2 minutes? And because I want to give these people ample opportunity to respond. Please don't go away. Please don't you go away. We'll get a response to this mother's anguished plea as AM Live continues. Welcome back, everybody. Before we take that mother's call and get everybody to respond to it, let me introduce to you Jason Ross. Jason actually appeared in a Calvin Klein ad, and he says it's not about heroin, it's about a fashion look that he thinks is attractive. So, Jason, you're the lucky one that gets to talk to this mother first.
Hello.
Ma'am, you with me still?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, proud mother, beautiful son. He's strung out on heroin somewhere in New York.
Yeah, I don't think it's about the fashion. I don't think it's about what he saw in the ads. I mean, these ads basically are celebrating the average person. Everyone complains about the waif look. Everyone complains about, you know, that everyone looks too beautiful, and there's airbrushing, and there's like all kinds of...
Jason, earth to Jason. The average person doesn't look like that. The average person doesn't look like that.
But that is one of a series. That is one of a series of pictures of people that are celebrated in a form that most ordinary people don't get celebrated in fashion magazines.
Are we on the same page here?
Well, Wally, one of the things that I want to respond to is exactly what was just brought up, and that is that if we believe in young people that how they look is a reflection of how they are feeling internally, again, I have to express concern over the look. And I think the woman that's on the phone would probably testify to the fact that before she recognized how chemically dependent her son was and how desperately he needed help, she probably saw a look similar to what we're seeing advertised and used in the media.
Ma'am, let me ask you, do you blame the fashion world for turning your son into an addict?
Pardon me?
Do you blame the fashion world for turning your son into an addict?
Of course not. Of course not. He's also dying from AIDS now. I don't blame the fashion industry whatsoever, but since there is so much beauty in this world, I can't understand why the fashion industry is trying to get the look of a crack or heroin addict when there is no beauty in it. No beauty in dark under the eyes. No beauty in not like...
We're getting into the level of judgment.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that, though. The reason why, which no one has sort of said here, the reason why fashion industry does anything is to be hip and happening and on the edge. Whether it is beauty, if beauty is hot at that moment, whether it is wave.
Do they lead or do they follow?
They do a little bit of both. They find it first when they may start it, they may see it somewhere small, but they're not, again, they're not actually in their own minds creating or promoting heroin use. And I keep trying to get that point across.
Who knows what a heroin addict looks like? How do you know that this is exactly what a heroin... What happens if it's someone who...
How do you know that this might not be very seductive for someone?
And Jason, you're how old now?
30.
Okay. What do you want the average 30-year-old guy to think, or the average 30-year-old woman to think when they see your picture in that magazine?
Well, I mean, I'm not like formulating the campaigns or anything like that. I'm a part of them, and I think it's just a matter of like, I'm a normal person. I was sort of thrown into this. It was like a lucky kind of thing. And if I can represent like normal people being in a fashion magazine, then I think that's
Tony,
great.
you take the pictures, but you've also got daughters. Do you want them? You want your kids to look like this?
If that's their choice. I mean, as a parent, I try to guide them the best way that I can, but sooner or later, they're going to start making their own decisions.
The point is, why do they look like this? Do they look like
Right.
this because of drugs, or do they look like this because it's just, you know, they just woke up and it's like, you know, or they've been out late and they've been having fun, and they're like out on the town, and so I think it's sort of celebrating maybe that, you know, people are like putting on less makeup and having fun, and you know,
Or it could be promoting, Wally,
Well,
an unhealthy lifestyle.
Exactly.
And whether
It's celebrating a drug culture. You're absolutely right about that.
To the caller, our best wishes are with you, and thank you for sharing what you shared with us this morning. Thanks to the models and certainly to everybody who's been here as part of this discussion. Stay with us as AM continues. Here's a man, speaking of celebrating ordinariness, I think Dennis Franz would agree. He's bald, he's certainly overweight, and he's one of the hottest actors in television. Dennis Franz from NYPD Blue in just a moment as AM Live continues.